Hello, I'm Nicole Johnson, and this is Diabetes Partners, a Type We program. In this course, we're going to talk about daily living with diabetes, and that means food and activity, and how both food and activity influence blood sugars. And when something influences blood sugars, that means it also influences our relationships. Let's watch as three couples living with diabetes learn from Michelle Lane, a nurse practitioner and certified diabetes educator.
So now we're going to talk about food. Nobody likes food, right? Nobody likes to eat. Now you have diabetes, you can't eat anything. Everything you want to eat makes your blood sugars go up. So we have some challenges when we eat. What do we want to eat? When do we want to eat it? How much can I eat? Where do we want to go to eat is a big one. There's a lot of challenges around food. So let's talk about being the diabetes police. That's a lot of times what our partners become. You don't want to eat that. Don't eat that. That's going to make your sugar go up. Try not to nag, or at least give your partner some nagging privileges. Just say, I'll give you 10 minutes or 5 minutes to give me nagging privileges, but other than that, don't nag. It's not going to help. It's probably going to cause more conflict. So I'm going to talk today about different foods, glycemic index, just go over some things real quickly. The Power Plate. This is a sample of a Power Plate. It's just portion sizing, really. Power Plate is portion sizing. You want to make sure you have a little bit of protein, a little bit of carbohydrate, a lot of vegetable, of the non-starchy vegetables. You want to sit down and eat at the table. The TV tray in front of the couch is probably not a good place to sit and eat a meal. Sit down, you want to enjoy each other, so sit down at a table. Some of the foods are questionable, what you want to eat. Vegetables are great, but some vegetables do raise your blood sugars. I have some sample vegetables here. Nice little rubber corn. Corn's a very starchy vegetable. It will raise your blood sugar, just like any other starchy. Potatoes. We want to try and avoid or make those portions much smaller. Leafy greens are great. Broccoli, green beans. Those are healthier. They're not going to raise your blood sugars. There's a lot of different recipes you can find where you can incorporate vegetable in replacement of carbohydrate. People are using cauliflower now as rice. So that's kind of a different way of incorporating your vegetable in place of a carbohydrate. Fruits are sugar too, but certain fruits are healthier over others. Berries, you can eat a whole cup of berries. You can eat a cup of blueberries. You can eat a half a cup of strawberries. Those are healthier. They have a little more fiber. Apples have a lot of fiber. They're healthier. Melons, not so good. Watermelon, cantaloupe, those are all very high in sugar. Banana is one of the highest. So you want to put those down at the lower end of your fruit list and choose some of the healthier ones. And just remember, fruit is sugar. Beans and potatoes, or beans and starchy vegetables are lower on the glycemic index, but they still have carbohydrates. So you need to watch if you're having rice and beans, you are having carbohydrate in both of those products. It's just the beans have more fiber. And then your whole grains, stick with the wheat breads, avoid the white breads, do whole grain pasta instead of white pasta, brown rice. Here I have an example of some brown rice. And this is just kind of a nice Power Plate here, broccoli and some fish. So that makes a good meal. And then your proteins. You want to make sure you incorporate proteins into your meal. It's very important when you eat, you have a carbohydrate and a protein. The protein will help slow the carbohydrate from raising the blood sugar. It'll help prevent you from becoming hungry. And those spikes that you have when you eat the pasta, if you have like 3 or 4 meatballs with it, it's going to prevent your sugar from going as high. Fats. Be careful with fats. What happens when you eat fat, like pizza? It's got carbohydrate and a lot of fat in it. The fat slows down the carbohydrate from turning into sugar. It takes longer to digest. So the food sits in your stomach longer. That blood sugar might not go up in 30 minutes like it would with a higher carbohydrate meal. It will take maybe 2 to 4 hours to raise. So you'll have a higher sugar for a longer period of time, and it might go up later. People with type 1, if you take your insulin at the beginning of the meal, and it's a very high fat meal, an hour later you potentially could have a low because the fat has not been, the carbohydrates and the fat are not digested yet.
So we've noticed a lot of times it's sometimes difficult to plan for meals, and we forget sometimes, do 15, 20 minutes ahead of time. When you're doing that high fat, if you were to have a pizza, say, would you say to suspend taking that insulin for another 30 minutes after you've had the meal to help adjust for the major low?
You can do it a couple different ways. If you wear an insulin pump, it's great because you can use different types of bolusing and do part of it up front and the rest a little longer, slower. If you inject, then you might want to take a smaller portion at the beginning of the meal, and then an hour after the meal, take the rest of your bolus. But fat's challenging. Fat can be really challenging in correcting blood sugars. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about glycemic index. Do you guys know what a glycemic index is? Tell me what your impression of it is. Do you use it when you carb count?
I don't really know what glycemic index stands for, or what, the terminology for all of it. All I know is that if it's high on the glycemic index, you're gonna have a really high spike, and then probably a really low after that. If it's low on the glycemic index, then it's usually gonna be a really low spike and more over time. So we try to stay on the lower side of things like whole foods or something like that.
Correct. So the glycemic index is how fast it's going to make your blood sugar go up. Things that are higher on glycemic index make the blood sugar go up faster. Things that are lower are slower. So I don't look at glycemic index when I look at foods. I carb count. Carb counting is, to me, we're going to cover it with insulin anyway, but it's an important concept to think about when you choose things. You want things with more fiber. If you have to chew it longer, it's probably better. Okay, so some of the food traps you have to watch out for. Sugar-free is not free. It's not free food. It doesn't mean you can eat all of it that you want. Oils, like we talked about, watch for oils. Low carb, a lot of times you'll see the net carbs on packages. That does not include the total carbohydrates. So don't look at the net carbs. Don't use that as your carb count ratio. So if you're giving your partner, 15 net carbs on a package, you're probably giving them a lot more to treat a low. So just watch the net carb. Food traps, whole grain is better than, look for whole wheat or whole grain, not just refined white flour. You have to watch some of the food traps. Some of the sugar-free things have higher fat in them, so you're getting more calories if you're trying to watch your weight. So be careful with the sugar-free things. Don't juice, chew. It's healthier. You get more out of it. Split food. Split your meals. French fries. Do you guys split fries? We all eat out, and everything's covered in a lot of fat and grease, and so if we can split it, you'll both stay healthier and lose weight. So do you guys exercise? How many exercise? So exercise is really important because it'll help you control your blood sugar better. When you're exercising, your muscles are using up the extra sugar that you have kind of floating around, and it'll help keep your blood sugars lower. It's hard to motivate to exercise. So any suggestions on what you guys might think might help motivate each other to exercise?
Having a dog helps.
Yeah.
Dogs are great. Do you guys all have dogs? Okay, you need to get a dog. Anything else to help? How do you guys
if
keep?
You had, like a challenge, if you had a Fitbit, or something, who's gonna reach that 10,000 steps first?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. It's great if you can make a plan of what to do together. So maybe you want to take dance lessons. So that way you could go out to dinner, have a nice low-fat, healthy dinner, and then go to dance lessons. You'll exercise off all that food that you've just eaten, and you're doing something healthy and beneficial to both of you. So I like dance lessons. I think they're fun. Swimming. Swimming's a great exercise. Get in the pool. You guys can swim in the pool. It's a great low stress on the joints exercise. Walking, taking a walk in the evening before you eat dinner, or right after you eat dinner. That's another kind of joint exercise you can do together. Everybody's doing this CrossFit thing now. You have to be careful with CrossFit. It's very intense. It'll definitely drop your sugar, but it's also, if you don't have somebody who knows how to tell you to properly do the CrossFit, you could get injured. So be careful with CrossFit. I have a couple couples in CrossFit. What do you do with your blood sugar before you exercise? Do you guys tell me, give me some. Bowl is half. Take half your amount of insulin before exercise. What's the big thing you should do before you exercise? Yeah, check your blood sugar. That's huge, because if you start exercising, and let's say you decide you're going to walk, and you're halfway down the beach, and you have nothing with you, and now all of a sudden your partner has to run to get somebody, so make sure you check your blood sugar before you exercise. It might be beneficial to have a little snack, some protein carbohydrate. Combine the two, always protein carb. Think of that. So you might want to have half a protein bar. You guys like that peanut butter chocolate bar. You could have half of one of those. After you're done exercising, check your blood sugar again, because that's going to be important. So now you guys are seeing how many times this whole blood sugar checking has to happen that you just did. So you might want to check your blood sugar again. And you might need the other half of the protein carbohydrate. Exercise will drop your blood sugar, for some people, up to 24 hours after you've exercised. So keep an eye on blood sugars, especially late in the evening. When you're exercising, you really absorb the insulin much quicker. So if you've bolused before you exercise, that insulin's going to get in much faster. So you definitely want to make sure you keep an eye on your blood sugars. Your liver has stored glycogen that now is released after exercise, and you could have low blood sugars.
We encouraged our couples to engage in the Big Blue test. What this test is evaluating how physical activity influences blood sugar values. So our couples, both the people with diabetes and those without, checked their blood sugar before and after a 10-minute walk around the facility where they were learning, and then come back in and see exactly how activity influenced their diabetes numbers. The results were surprising to many.
So Michelle, everyone checked their blood sugar multiple times, right? Before you exercised, after you exercised. How did that feel to have to check that many times in such a short amount of time?
I was actually shocked, how much the sugars changed. Just doing a little bit of exercise. I mean, that was just a couple minutes. That was like nothing. I mean, just a little casual walk, and both of ours dropped, almost 20 points. So that's a huge change. I mean, that's a definite game changer. Just thinking, you don't even have to worry about bolusing more or anything like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just exercise.
Mm-hmm.
You can eat that stuff.
Yeah. And remember, when you're asking your loved one to check their blood sugar multiple times during the day, what that must feel like. So it gives you a little bit of perspective of what diabetes feels like from their side. So
This exercise was about way more than food and activity. It was about understanding and creating an environment of understanding. A loving, supportive environment is the key to happy, successful living with diabetes.